Hi, I'm Caleb Rodriguez.
And I'm Lauren Klein.
Otherwise known as Bronycon.
And Kage Pony.
To our Skype friends and Tumblr friends.
And internet friends. And
occasional Reddit friends. Yeah, internet friends, pretty much. That's the best thing to call you guys. But anyway, yes, this is a video that's been a long time coming. This is our Bronycon the Experience video.
Yes.
And this will detail our whole trip, not just Bronycon aspect. And that is why it'll be in two parts. One part involving the bus. This part. So if you want to see the other part, that's going to be like everything else. That's going to be Bronycon. That's going to be New York. That's going to be... What else would that be?
That's everything that happened in
everything that happened. Oh, Heim will be mentioned.
Yes.
Anyway.
The hotel, everything.
But
anyways.
That's a story for another day. Anyway. So yeah, this video is about the bus ride, which started terribly, but it's okay because it got progressively worse. The day started, we showed up in Phoenix after what seemed like a really long car ride to Phoenix. yeah, little do we know. And it was hot. It was very, very hot.
So hot.
So hot. And we were carrying around bags.
Yes. And we were waiting in this bus terminal in hot Phoenix.
Little naive boys.
Yes.
All excited about Bronycon. Which wasn't for another 2 days, by the way.
Yeah,
So we knew we were going to be spending 2 days on the bus, but we're like, we got iPods, we got Pokemon, we got books, we got this.
We got this.
So, yeah, it was really hot, and the bus didn't leave until 45 minutes after it was supposed to.
Yes, because the original bus driver got heat stroke.
And died.
Yes.
Yeah, sure. Okay. So we had to get a new bus driver. They called this new bus driver in, and he showed up. And it's actually pretty cool of him to show up only 45 minutes late, because there's another horror story about that kind of thing later. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
Yeah.
So anyway, we spent a long time in Arizona. We thought we'd be out of Arizona and into New Mexico within a couple hours, but like the whole day was in Arizona. Going to Flagstaff,
Holbrook, and then out to Albuquerque. But
yeah, the problem was that we had the oldest bus in the world. I mean, this bus is old enough to, in and of itself, disprove young Earth people. Like, it was so old. And we are driving up and down mountains in this old bus.
In hot
in the most
desert
heat ever.
Arizona.
So, it overheated, and we had to stop for about 15 minutes, like 3 or 4 times.
Yeah, 4 times.
It
overheated 4 times.
It overheated 4 times on the way into Flagstaff.
Yes. And
so
we got there, and normally we would have switched buses, but since we were late already...
Because we were already late, and because we overheated 4 times...
The bus driver lied and said that it had only overheated once, so we didn't switch buses. He's like, no, we're good. We just gotta get these people to their destination on time.
And we didn't care, really, because we were naive.
And it still had air conditioning, you know.
And then we got to New Mexico. And, yeah, we got a new bus driver. Same bus.
Yeah, same bus.
New bus driver. Anything happened in between Joplin and there?
Not really. We go through New Mexico.
Go
through Texas, and so much. There's so much Texas.
Oh yes, Texas is a whole day in and of itself.
Yes.
We just Texas.
Just all day. Texas all day long. And we
found Ren's house on our way to Texas.
Yes, there's a picture of it.
Yeah. Oh, and another thing we forgot to mention: Spider-Man.
Oh yes.
We brought this little Spider-Man action figure that I don't know why we did. We thought it was a good idea, but he accompanied us the whole way, and was our best friend. And we played with him a little bit and had a fun time. But anyway, that aside, so we're driving through Mexico.
New Mexico.
No, Texas.
Texas
now. We're at Texas. Okay, so we're driving through Texas, and we start picking up some, for lack of a better word, hicks.
Yeah.
So they're sitting there in the back, and these are like nutty.
Oh yeah,
nut
like
people, like
conspiracy theorists, just
like you know,
real.
you know when you're like listening to a moon landing theorist and like conspiracy theorist, and you're like, huh, I could see how someone might believe that. These people, no,
no, just
it's
Hitler invented the gyroscope.
Yeah. Hitler invented the gyroscope, and it's a weapon of mass destruction that he invented to create UFOs.
Michael Jackson and Elvis are still alive.
And it's like being covered up by the Illuminati. Oh, but
Yeah.
the best part was their explanation that the U.S. government has the ability to see the future.
Mm-hmm.
And if they told us of this ability, we would like rally against it and like demand that they use it for things that we wanted. So instead, they came up with this ingenious plan to subtly help teach us how horrible the future is going to be by including clues in science fiction movies.
So
WALL-E
Hollywood is just a tool of the government to show us what the future is going to be like with all these post-apocalyptic films and what have you.
So they've mentioned Independence Day,
Yeah,
WALL-E, WALL-E of all things.
WALL-E.
Yeah, they mentioned WALL-E. What else is there?
Book of Eli, I think they mentioned.
Book of Eli, Battle LA. And we're just like, okay.
And I'm like,
Alright, whatever. But they keep going on about this subject for forever. So eventually, me, being me, and getting tired of it, I turn around and I'm like, you know, I don't give too much credence to that sort of thing. And they're all ready for a conspiracy theory fight. And they're like, oh, hey, you don't believe it? And I'm like, yeah, mostly because those movies never account for the psychics. And they're like, what? Psychics? You believe in psychics? Crazy.
yeah.
So, I'm like, yeah, well, considering I am one. And then they're like, what?
You know.
Yeah, and so this girl is like, oh, if you're psychic, read my mind. And I'm like, oh. And then I remember a YouTube video that I'd watched that was about, like, how psychics do their thing. And so I improvised.
Yep.
I gave very general statements about this girl, like the best I could come up with on short notice. And she bought into it, hook, line, and sinker, and she's like, oh my god, you're psychic. But she was a little bit, like, what would you say, like, over-enthusiastic. Yeah. So she demanded I do everyone else.
Yeah, start reading other people's personalities on the bus.
Yeah.
And so she turns around, do this person.
I do like 10 people.
Yeah, like 10 people, just
all just
just
sitting around
general
us.
bull.
And
like just
yeah,
really. It's
and like I'm convincing most of the bus that I'm psychic at this point.
Yeah.
And then they decide that I'm like the guy from Psych. And they're like, yeah, you're just like hyper what's the word?
Observant.
Hyper observant. So that you're like the guy from Psych, which was quite an honor to be called, because no, not at all. But still, I don't know, they were closer than anyone else was.
Yeah.
So they're like, you're hyper observant, and I'm like, no, I'm not. And then they devised this incredibly scientifically powerful test to determine whether or not I truly was psychic by pointing to this black lady at the front of the bus, way ahead of us, and going, read her.
Like,
oh, because we hadn't even talked to her. We had no idea what kind of person she was.
yeah.
So we couldn't even.
So he just looks at her, and she's moving, kind of her movements
sporadically, kind of.
Yeah, like strong, and so just kind of base what kind of person she is off of about how she moves and stuff, and then go in blind and hope for the best.
Yeah, and I was a little bit cocky.
Yeah. He's like, all right, she's kind of angry. She's angry because she's been on the bus for so long. And I'm like, well, yeah, we all are. He's like, no, wait, I'm getting more. She's angry because she recently got out of a relationship that ended on a bad note. And they're like, how can we tell? Someone has to ask her. So this
and
guy...
And you're like facepalming at this point. You're like, oh god.
Jesus, how are you gonna do this? You know? And then some guy goes, well, I'll ask her.
And he gets up, all ready to make me look like an idiot. And goes up and talks to her, and they're like whispering up there.
So we can't hear.
And we can't hear, and they keep
just
turning back to me.
We're crossing our fingers, and
the lady keeps turning back and like pointing at me like, him?
Yeah. And then finally she stands up, points over, and says, "It's a gift from the Lord. It is a gift from the Lord Himself."
And she's like, "Oh man!"
And we're like trying not to explode
burst into laughter. And it was perfect.
It was the best experience ever.
And everyone from that moment on was absolutely 100% convinced that we were psychic.
Yeah.
100%.
Yes, it's just totally.
They demanded more tricks throughout the bus ride.
Yeah.
And I had to bend a key with my mind.
Yeah.
Which I did by giving them one of my keys and then having them hold it and make sure it's not a trick key, which it wasn't. And they hand it back to me, and I go, now there's no way that I can bend this with just my hands. I'm like trying to show them, and as I'm showing them, I just bend it with my hands. But I said there was no way I could, so they're like, oh yeah. And then I put it in my hand, so the bend is covered up, so you just have the flat end of the key sticking out of my hand. And I start rubbing it, and I feed it out in between my thumb and index finger. So it looks like it's bending, and everyone just freaks
out.
Like, they're like, oh my god. They have no idea. And keep in mind, I've never done this before. Like, this is totally right off the cuff. So, yeah. I knew, like, the basic idea of what I was doing, but
yeah, everything went better than expected.
Everything went much better than expected.
And yeah, it was pretty incredible. So, except that then we couldn't get the girl behind us to leave us alone.
Yeah.
So she got off the bus.
Yeah.
She was so interested in psychic.
Yep.
Yeah.
But anyway, she got off the bus pretty quick. I think she got off at the next, like, rest stop place.
Something.
So we're on the bus still. Yeah. And by this point, we are finally out of Texas.
Yes.
And it's been a whole day in Texas.
Yes, and we have realized, okay, this is ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's taking so long. I've been on this bus for so long.
I've been on this bus for like a day and a half. This is horrible.
Did we know?
Yeah, and keep in mind, we're on the same bus from when we started. The old 6,000-year-old bus.
Henry Ford rode on this bus.
Yeah. Henry Ford was inspired to invent the car. Well, he didn't invent the car. Well, whatever. Regardless, we are sitting on this bus for forever, and we get another bus driver who's better than, like, the bus drivers we've had before. She's, like, awesome.
Yeah.
And we're riding on the bus, and the AC cuts out. And it's still really hot.
And we're in Missouri, and it's, like, midnight.
Yeah. And it's still hot.
And it's so humid and so hot. It's horrible.
Not to mention flat.
Yeah.
But that's something else.
Yeah.
You won't believe how flat Missouri is. Like, I knew in concept, but it was weird.
Oklahoma was really flat.
Oklahoma.
Texas, yeah. We went through Texas. We went from Amarillo up to Tulsa, and then we left Tulsa, and then it was 2 hours to St. Louis, which was our layover. Where we switched buses, our transfer. That's the word.
But
so
before that, we're talking about Joplin.
Yeah, that's in Missouri.
Yeah. So we're on.
That's after Oklahoma.
We didn't switch buses though. We were still on the same bus from Arizona.
Yeah. Our transfer was in St. Louis, which was also in Missouri.
Oh right, yeah. So we're on our way to St. Louis, and we're in Missouri, and
there's a rest stop in Joplin.
Yeah. So, but the AC cuts out, and the bus driver gets on the PA system. And they say, "I'm contractually obligated to stop the bus if there's anything wrong." even if it's just the AC. And we're like, keep driving, just get us there.
And
we can take it.
Yeah, and she's being really cool about it, and she's like, it is really hot, and you guys are already, like, by that point, we were already, like, 2 hours behind schedule.
Yeah.
Like, we were gonna arrive 2 hours later in New York than we would have.
We were gonna miss our transfer. So we would have to wait for
if you had a transfer in St. Louis and you've already missed it, I'm sorry, but I'm just gonna try and get you there as fast as I can. But I have to stop the bus because it is too hot for me to drive, and I'm getting a check engine light. So we're like, crap.
Okay, fine. So we stop in Joplin, and of all the bus stations that we've stopped in, Joplin was the smallest. It had the least, like, stuff.
Anything.
Because, like, all the bus stations had a restaurant, like, an arcade, ticket window, and vending machines.
Yeah, this one had no restaurant. It had, like, 3 vending machines.
It had, like, 3 vending machines with nothing in them.
Yeah.
Oh, except
it had the coolest Coke machine ever, because it had Coke, and then it had cans, and it had bottles, but it also had the one good thing Pepsi makes, which is Mountain Dew.
So it was the best vending machine.
It was like good guy vending machine.
Unfortunately, we couldn't buy anything from it because we had a whole bunch of 20s and nothing else. So anyway, we're stuck in Joplin, and it's this tiny place, and it's really hot. Oh yeah, that's another thing. Most of the bus stations had air conditioning. Joplin didn't. Joplin had the world's largest fan
in the doorway.
In the doorway.
Walked in, and that was it.
That was it.
So of course this whole bus is sitting here in this tiny place. Oh yeah, and the restrooms were
terrible.
Yeah.
Don't even talk about the restrooms.
Anyways,
but
this entire bus is sitting in this really tiny space that is not air conditioned. Everyone is sweating. It's 1 a.m, and we have to wait for a bus driver. One, to wake up, and because when they call them in, they give them 2 hours to come into work. So they call him in, and then he has to come into the bus terminal at Tulsa, Oklahoma, get a new bus, and then drive the 2-hour drive to Joplin, where we are. So all in all, it takes him about 4 hours to get to Joplin. So we're there for 4 hours.
Sitting, waiting. All our electronics are dead from the bus ride, so we're charging those.
Yeah, so we're charging.
And we're all waiting with all these horribly upset bus people.
Yeah.
The good news about Joplin is it gave us a chance to talk to people other than, like, the crazy people from earlier. Because other than them, we hadn't really met anyone interesting on the bus. So we're sitting in Joplin, and the first person we meet is this guy named Robert Christopher.
Yes.
And Robert Christopher is one of the, like, most awesome dudes.
Yes, he's a really cool guy.
Yeah, it's like, he has, like, the best story, but
yeah.
He was a legal immigrant from Mexico. His English wasn't really good.
He couldn't speak it very well. He understood almost everything we said.
Yeah, but
he couldn't speak it that well.
But we could communicate pretty easily.
Yeah.
And we're talking to him, and he's, he looks a little grizzled because he's missing some teeth, and he's got this big scar over his eyebrow, and one of his eyes is like bright red, bloodshot. So we're a little bit freaked out by him. And we're talking to him, and he seems like a really cool guy. And then we learned why he's leaving Arizona. Why he's on the bus out of Arizona.
Uh-huh.
And it's because he was hanging out with some friends of his who were illegal immigrants. And he's a legal citizen. He showed us the papers to prove it. And he's hanging out with them, and some cops come by. And, like, beat everyone up.
Yeah, they just beat them up.
Yeah, and he pulls out his immigration papers, which he carries on him.
He's got him.
He's got
his
him.
Papers.
And it's evident that he had him out during the fight because there's blood
stains on him.
And the cops proceeded to beat the crap out of him, even though he's a legal resident of the United States.
He showed us. He's like, yeah, they beat me up pretty good. I had blood running down my eyes. I'm like, please, I have my papers. And he just. Yeah.
So he's leaving Arizona because it's just not a friendly place for him.
Yep.
Which made me really, really sad.
Yeah, so he said he was going to Chicago. What did he say? He's got some...
You know someone in Chicago.
Someone in there. So he knows nothing about Chicago. He's like, what? Do you know what it's like? Is it a good place?
Are there many Mexican people in Chicago? And we're like, oh, I don't know. We know it's windy. John, if you could have been there, you would have been able to help.
Yeah.
But we talked to him about Chicago, and then we talked to him about American history. I don't know why he brought it up, but we started talking to him about American history. And based on what he said, he was like, it was like talking with a like freshman or middle schooler who's learning about American history, and they're just quizzing themselves. So it seems to me like he was like applying to become a citizen. That seems like the most logical explanation on why he'd be like learning all that. But anyway, he talked to us about American history, and it was actually really cool talking to him because
he knew a lot.
He knew a lot, but he didn't know how to say a lot of it in English. So it's like the weirdest way of hearing American history ever.
Yeah.
He's like, King George, he was a jerk, and he was like, you guys have to be taxed, and then George Washington's like, no, I don't want tax. And we're like,
yeah, it was kind of cool
like
though.
A weird like little summation of the history of the Revolutionary War.
Yeah.
And so we're talking to him, and then this other guy becomes interested in the conversation. We don't know if this is his real name. He probably changed it because he said he was a musician for a while. But he goes by Race Brown, and he was really cool.
Yeah, he was a cool guy.
He was like awesome. And he comes up to us, and he was really smart.
Oh yeah.
And he talked all about flaws in the education system and politics and like cultural issues. And we talked to him for a long time. But he was awesome. And he started out as a musician. He did like piano acts in bars and stuff or whatever. And apparently he was like pretty well known in his little sphere. And then he became a school teacher. And then he decided he didn't want to be a part of teaching anymore because he felt like the system was messed up and it only worked for some people. And that kind of left other people in the dust. And he talked all about his theories on how education should be. And he told us about his book. What was the name of his book?
Dang it.
Yeah, I know. I was like seriously wanted to read his book when it came out.
But yeah, he was writing this book about it, and like, I really agree with a lot of his ideas about how the education system is.
And he was,
on a standard that's not okay with everyone. It's not fair for everyone because everyone's got different talents, and they just base it off one thing.
Reading, writing, and arithmetic. So he was cool. We talked to him, and in the bus terminal we met, but didn't really talk much with JT, who was like this ultra nerd that we met that made us look a little bit normal. But he's sitting there, and I've got my Minecraft necklace on, and he's like, I like the necklace, by the way, and Creeper. And I'm like, oh, thanks. And then he starts talking about Minecraft and TF2 World of Warcraft, and we're like, okay, Minecraft, TF2, World of Warcraft, ponies? And he's like, yeah, kind of. He wasn't a full-fledged
brony.
Brony.
Quite Brony.
But he's seen the episodes, and he was like talking about like stuff in the episode.
Yeah. Like, he was on the edge. He just needed
a push.
Yeah.
He's probably a Brony now because of us.
Yeah, pretty much. He just hadn't gotten around to watching all the episodes, pretty much.
And he stuck with us like for a long time. For a long time.
Virginia?
Something like that.
I think, he got off in Virginia.
Right, okay. So we finally make it, the bus finally arrives, we get a nice bus, one that works.
Yes.
We go...
And we leave at 5:30 in the morning from Joplin.
Yeah. And we go to St. Louis.
And we arrive...
noonish. Yeah. So we're in St. Louis, and because we missed our transfer, we're going to be there for 4 hours.
Yeah.
So
Until a new bus comes.
We're like...
Because we have to get reissued tickets.
whatever. And then I realized St. Louis Arch.
Yeah, and we were like right there.
And yeah, it's like a couple like blocks away.
Yeah.
And we're like, we're gonna be here for 4 hours. Let's look at the St. Louis Arch. So we did. We got on this little public train that's like, it wasn't free, but it was cheap.
Yeah, it was really cheap.
Yeah, it was like, but it was awesome. And this train went like forever fast. And we just straight to the St. Louis Arch. We got out, went up to it. It's big.
Yeah.
It's like much bigger than I thought it'd be. Because I always assumed it'd be like the size of a tall building. But
oh yeah. I knew it was like really huge.
I didn't realize that. Well, I assumed like the size of the bottom of the arch was big enough for the elevator and nothing else. But it was like the size of the like where the arch meets the ground is like the size of a house. A small house. So we're like, oh wow,
it's
this is big. And we looked at that. We didn't go up inside it, but we looked at it. We were glad we did. We headed back to the bus terminal. We bought a hat.
Oh yes. So I don't know how many of you know the musician Jackalap.
Brony musician. He was gonna be at Bronycon.
Yeah, and before I left for Bronycon, well, Jackal was all talking bad about fedoras. Now he hates them and how they're the worst hat ever on Tumblr. And I don't disagree with him, but I told him, Jackal, I'm going to get a fedora and do everything in my power to place it on your head and snap a picture at Bronycon. And he never replied to me. He usually replies to me, which is weird. So,
we bought.
So I told him that. So then in St. Louis, there I'm looking, and then there's this terrible checkered fedora for $10 at the St. Louis terminal. I'm like, this is the one. So I bought it.
We buy it, and
we kept that.
And we were all excited about that. So everything is falling into place. Oh gosh, how could we not have mentioned one of the most important things?
What's that?
Before we left, we decided that we needed to buy some Gorilla Munch, which is a type of cereal with a picture of a gorilla on the front, and it's a meme, and Jimmy Russell's meme. That's where it comes from. The picture on the front of Gorilla Munch.
Yeah.
So we got that. It was terrible. We tried to eat it, so we never did that again.
Yeah, no.
We dumped out all the cereal. We kept the box, but that was another thing. We were gonna take that to Bronycon. We were gonna get the box signed by a whole bunch of people.
Yeah.
So just throwing that in there, that's kind of important to the story. And, alright, so, yeah, so we're in St. Louis. We drive around with JT for a while. He's our main company now. And he's a really cool guy.
Yeah.
He was moving out of Arkansas. And to Virginia.
So he's
was it Arkansas or Alabama?
I actually think it was Alabama.
Alright. So he was our main company. The only other person that we met at all was gay Christopher Lloyd.
Oh yes, I was in St. Louis. I was
right before we left St. Louis.
And he was a cool guy.
He was a cool guy. And his name is Gay Christopher Lloyd, or we call him Gay Christopher Lloyd, because he's gay and looks like Christopher Lloyd.
And he told us his name, but unfortunately we forgot it.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
He, think Back to the Future with sideburns.
Yeah.
And you got him.
There you go.
And he was really interesting. He talked about, moral dilemmas in society.
He was also a Quaker.
He was a Quaker, yes. Which was pretty cool. And he was talking about Quakers and how they're pretty cool. And, yeah.
And we told him that we were going to BronyCon and about the whole thing. And we told him about the music. We showed him a Mando Pony song and he was impressed.
He was very impressed. He was like, oh, that's, good music.
And we're like, yeah, man. So he learned about bronies.
He may be a brony now as well.
Who knows?
But anyway, so we're on the bus with JT. Not much happens.
Yeah, no.
We're going around with JT. We stop at a bus terminal. This is his last stop with us, and we're hanging out with him. He has no money, and we are starving, and we buy food. And then JT's just sitting there, and we're like, okay. So we bought him a hot dog. And he was all appreciative and stuff. and I had the feels. But anyway,
Yes.
so we bought him a hot dog, and then we played a whole bunch of shooter arcade games
Oh, yes.
with him, and he was pretty good, which was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
And the last thing we did before we left is there was a 1/4 claw machine.
Yes.
For 1/4, you can play the claw machine. It was play until you win, and I was hankering for some Smarties.
Yes,
so
it was one of those ones with all the candy.
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, I'm gonna give myself some Smarties from this thing.
Stick
So I put a
quarter
coin in, and it starts playing this music. And the claw is going around. And I line it up with the Smarties. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get this in one hit. And I press it, and the claw goes down, and sits.
Just sits on the candy.
It doesn't close. It's just sitting there on the candy, and then
it
comes back up and goes over
back.
the drop place.
Okay, that was weird.
So we try it again,
Try again.
and it
does the same
drops, and it's
thing.
play until you win. So it's not picking anything up. It's just landing on it, still open, going up, still open, and then going back over the drop box.
So we're like, are you serious?
Yeah.
So this machine, we're just sitting for like 10 minutes. We're just
trying to figure
Just
out if
screwing
we're
up.
doing something wrong or if it's
just like messing with this machine.
and we're
Eventually-
totally baffled by it because there's only one button to drop it, and there's the joystick. It's not like
and it was play till you win. So eventually we
It-
just started screwing with it and dropping it into
the hole,
that-
so the claw went all the way down to the hole, and then we'd
And
come
then-
back up, and it just wasn't doing anything.
and like we walked away and it was still going.
And it's
'cause
probably still
it probably
playing.
still is because it's play until you win and you can't win.
And those places are open 24 hours a day,
Yeah,
so
days a
it's
week
not
they have to
unplugged.
be. Yeah.
It's just it's going there. Or actually, probably someone stopped it, but I like to think that
But it's still
gonna go on
It's gonna go
till
on
the end of time.
forever.
But
Yes.
all right, so we got on the bus with JT. He left at his stop, and that was the end of people we knew. Virginia, Frankfurt.
Tennessee. I don't know.
I thought he got off in Virginia. It was that place with the
The
we
sign.
also have food.
We also have food.
And we tried to figure out the best way to read that sign. It was obviously a typo, but I like to read it like, we all so have food.
Yeah.
Like, dude, do you have food? No,
Dude,
we so have food. But anyway,
But yeah.
they had that sign. And so he got off there. We were on our way to Bronycon,
Yeah.
which had started at this point. We were 10 hours late.
It
So
started-
BronyCon had started, and we were in Virginia. And we drove, and we were very disgruntled and very upset about missing the beginning of BronyCon. But we were just ready to be there and get off the bus.
We're just like, let's just go.
So
So yeah.
we get to New Jersey, and
We get
we have one more stop after that
Yeah,
in
we
New
were-
York.
We were in Newark, New Jersey, and we're in New Jersey, and it's like
Last stop is
we're
New
like-
York, so we have one more stop to go, and we're sitting there like, How far?
Bronycon's in New Jersey.
how far do you think it is from the stop? So we call our hotel.
Yeah.
And we ask we look
We
at the
call this
signs and we
Sheraton.
figure out where we are, and we're like, how far?
Like, how far is it from How is the Sheraton from Newark? And they're like, it's about 20 minutes.
And we're like,
And I'm like, okay, thank you.
Thundercats or go.
So we
Thunderbirds.
get off the bus, we get under the bus, which we're not supposed to do, and get our luggage.
Steal
before
our
stuff.
own luggage.
And we're like, F you, Greyhounds,
Get out of here.
go away forever.
And we
Except
walk
it's
over
fancy.
and we get a
And
cab.
we just don't even care at this point. So
And
we just get in a
hate
cab.
Greyhound so much at this point. We get in a cab and we're like, we're going to the Sheraton. And he's like, the Sheraton? And we're like, yeah. And he's like, okay, that's gonna be like $40. And we're like, cool.
Like, just drive, man.
And we get
So we're in here, and then we go like at 15 miles ish.
Yeah.
To the Sheraton in Secaucus, New Jersey, and
we check in,
check in,
drop off our bags,
and then
we go in.
take the
A
most glorious shower
Oh my god.
of all time ever.
We
This-
hadn't had a
we
shower,
hadn't had a shower
in
in,
3
like,
days,
3 days.
and
Okay.
we felt awful.
And yeah, it was so gross. Like, we were in St. Louis, we were able to like clean up a little bit with like
Wet wipes.
yeah, but that was about it.
Yeah.
So we were gross.
So we take the shower, and Oh man, it was beautiful. Like,
we were on like what, the seventh floor.
yeah, we were on
of
the 7th floor. We had
Sheraton.
this beautiful view of New Jersey.
So yeah.
Yeah. But we get done. We're like, okay, we need to get to Bronycon now
Yeah.
before we miss anything else.
And when we get down there and we see some bronies coming back, and we're like, oh, hey, what's up, man? And we're like, oh, dude, yeah, you here for Bronycon? Like, yeah, we just got here. Oh, you missed a bunch. But yeah, and we see these guys, and we don't think much of them. But,
We're just
yeah,
like,
we're
first
just like,
bronies we
first
meet,
bronies,
nice.
okay, and then go back into the hotel. And we're like, all right, we need to get somewhere. So we talk to the lady and find out that there's a shuttle that goes to the exposition center,
Which is pretty
on the
much
out,
where
which
Bronycon is.
Yeah, it's
Like, so we go to the exposition center, we walk to Bronycon, and it's beautiful.
yes.
They have this giant red Mack
Like
truck.
like this whole area, it's called the Meadowlands, which is where the exposition center was located, and
pretty much
just
an outdoor
everywhere.
mall.
Yeah, basically, and everywhere there were bronies. Like you could tell they were like dressed up, like cosplaying or whatever. They're everywhere.
Some of them had tails.
Like
some
we
of them had
drive up
t-shirts.
and we see them, and our faces light up, and we're like. So
Oh,
we
boy.
get to the exposition center and we
And it's
go
beautiful.
in and we,
But that's for episode 2.
yes.
And this is already like almost 40 minutes long, so this might be divided up into 2 episodes.
Yes.
So this, I guess, is the end of episode 1, part 2. And we will begin episode 2, part 1 shortly. So click on the link for that.